Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Awaken Way podcast. I have a returning guest, Tammy Anderson, who is probably one of the most intriguing guests I've had. She's quiet, she's not showy at all, but oh, she's deep. And if you tune into her energy, you will pick up on that depth. You will be changed by her words. Our discussion today is going to center around her new book, Into Love. And it's all about love today, but not romantic love, your very essence. Before I go too much further, let's bring Tammy in so that we can dive in to what this topic really is and how it relates to you. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. Well, since I had you on last time, you published your book,
Yeah.
and I got the title right, didn't I?
Yes,
Yeah.
into love.
Yeah, I don't have it with me right here, right now, because we just finished moving in and I don't have my hands on it. But I recall when you sent it to me chapter by chapter, I couldn't wait for the next installment. And you kept revising it. And I thought, why are you revising it? It's already perfection. The word that came to mind as I read your words was delicious. I just felt enveloped by this energy that's so unique. And so we can talk about where that came from. But why don't you start by telling everybody what the book is about and why you wrote it?
Why I wrote it. Well, I never really wanted to write a book until after our last meeting, after your last show. People kept asking me, have you written a book? Have you written a book? Where's your book? And so I decided to start writing a book. And most of this book was written at 2 or 3 in the morning. And it was just, that's when I could get out of my mind and it just started flowing through. So that's why I wrote it. And I wrote it as using my life as a framework for the story, but the stories is 30 different stories of my life. But I wrote it in a way that invites people into their own story and invites a remembering of love unfolding and how it's unfolding in your life. And so that's what I'm hearing people are getting from it, and that's pleasing me very much.
Yeah, and the thing is, everybody has a story, but Tammy, your stories, plural, are so unusual. Multiple near-death experiences, as we talked about in the last episode. I
Yeah.
encourage everybody to go back and watch that. Just go on my channel or YouTube in general and search Suzanne Giesemann and Tammy Anderson. And I mean, stories of being basically kidnapped when you were
Yeah.
hitchhiking and almost raped or killed. Who knows what would have happened? But staying calm in the midst of all of it. A military background, a long period of time in a monastery, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
So
for 13 years. Yeah.
yeah, a long period. 13 years. So the dichotomy is tremendous. And yet there's this thread woven throughout the
Yeah.
book. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, the thread woven through the book is about remembering love and how the times in my life revealed what that was really was. Love is, like you said in the beginning, it's not just romantic love. Love is basic framework, the underneath layer of everything. And it's remembering that. And my near people often people hear near death experiences, it appears to me, and they think that somehow you're magic and you're transformed in an instant. But this, for me, my experience is this has been an integration my whole life, integrating what this experience was, these experiences were, because I've had three. But the message for me has been one of integrating love and transforming the ordinary, what we call ordinary everyday adventures in our lives, to extraordinary by remembering how we can transform ordinary experiences or interactions and relationships. How can we transform those? By choosing love, by embodying love, by remembering who we really are, which is love.
And You're reminding me now of the very first workshop I taught many, many years ago. And one of my participants raised her hand and she said, "You keep talking about love, but I have never experienced love in my life. I was abused by my parents as a child. I was abused by the partners in my life. I really don't know what love is." And again, now that's relational. So I would love for you, there we go, using that word so blithely, right?
Yeah,
To share with everybody, what is this kind of love you're talking about?
yeah. It's the underground of what it's all about. And within it, it's the arising, that's the choice, it's the fabric of all of it. And so, yeah, it's so easy to say love, I love you. And I remember as a child, people saying, I love you. And there was not much, I don't want to say too much because my family's so around, so I don't want to offend anybody. And I want to say first, um, that I would never want to meet anyone who didn't have some dysfunction in their family because they would have this much depth, this much, compassion.
I love
I
that.
wouldn't change one thing about my childhood, one thing about my tough experiences in this life. I wouldn't change anything because it's made me who I am.
Wow.
And I just visited my family after quite a lot of years, and there was some triggering that rose. And what I find is that these are opportunities to choose love, and forgiveness and stillness within the storm. The storms happen. So I guess if I was going to answer what is love, it's an everyday opportunity to choose being still, being non-reactive, and choosing to be peace in the midst of storm. We can't change anybody. We can only attempt to find peace within ourselves. And that's a journey enough. That's a challenge enough sometimes to find that stillness within the storm. But it's a returning back to that calm place if you can find it within the storm. So you keep returning. So it's an intention. It's a very strong intention. It's a
You're,
mission, I guess.
you're reminding me that to share with everybody, my ongoing definition of love that hasn't changed over the years is when we understand there at the deepest level, there is no separation between
Yeah.
us and everyone else. When you're in love, in the sense that most people think about it, you just love everything about that person. You feel like you're one, you want to do everything together, and that's love. But
Yeah.
let's just take it so much deeper and at the non-physical level, energetically, we are absolutely one with everyone. It's all consciousness, as you know. But that lack of separation, our soul knows that. And you can't find that without returning to that stillness you're talking about.
Yeah. One time I went through there was a friend that asked me, and I hadn't seen him for a while, but he asked me a question, and it was a gathering of people. It was a party of some kind. I don't remember what it was, but everybody was mingling, and he walks over to me and goes, "How's your love life?" And I was taken aback. I was like, so I go, like, what? And then I realized what he was really asking. And I love that question because how is your love life? It's all about how is your love life. He wasn't talking about, uh, you know,
Romantic
romantic
relationship.
love.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. He was talking about how is your love life? How is life and love?
Huh.
How is this evolving for you?
Oh,
And
nice.
and so I thought that's a really great question. And I took notice of my stepping back like you know, and
Yeah.
it was quite funny, but I always remember that. And I asked myself that question, how's your love life today? What are you intending? Who are you loving? Are you loving yourself? Are you loving others? And sometimes it's the things rise up and, can I even love this today? Sometimes it's no. And then sometimes I turn it into, I'm able to turn it into yes. I can't even love this. So it's turning our nose and our resistance into yes, and finding the opportunity that's rising when I find that the juice is is in where we find resistance within ourselves. At least within me. When I find myself triggered, I thought, there's the opportunity, there's the choice, there's the juice, there's the opportunity to turn this. That's where, if I'm triggered, it's because somebody has said something that I have a belief somewhere in deep inside that there's an element of truth to it. And so if I didn't believe that, they wouldn't affect me at all. And so I find that quite interesting. Aren't we interesting? I just find, uh, you know, it's all about, for me, it's about, we're light beings in a sense coming into a story, into a lineage, and we get the opportunity to transform it with our light, and sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. It's not about being perfect. It's about it's about finding the perfection in the imperfection, falling down, getting back up.
So a little while back, you said you wouldn't change who you are after you were talking about your interactions with your family. You wouldn't change who you are because of your background. I'd like to ask you, who are you?
I wouldn't, what I actually said was I wouldn't change any of the experiences I've had that were challenging because it's made me who I am.
Okay, but that
And
leads
who
to
I
my
am,
question. Yeah, who are you?
okay, who am I?
Yeah.
It's allowed that essence of me that is the essence of light, love, to arise.
Okay, so you are
So
the light
love,
and the
I
love.
am love.
That's
So what I was searching for all those years, I know that it's within me. It's really true that the kingdom of God is within you. And what I was searching for all those years, over 13 years in monasteries and convents and serving the poor and doing, you know, joining religious communities, I finally realized there was also uh, a spiritual bypass, which is can happen. And you're using spirituality to bypass emotional woundedness or stuckness. And
Mm.
so I did over 10 years of therapy on myself after realizing that was part of my growth. I became a therapist. And so I dove deep. And I guess that's my nature, to dive deep into whatever I'm doing, real deep. And so that was a whole different aspect. And so the spirituality grew into a depth. Now it's just more quiet than anything. So I guess I would say, who am I? Right now, it's I have to say my life is so peaceful. My inner life is peaceful. I've been able to, at this point, I'm in my mid 60s now, and I've been able to quiet that voice that was always critical,
Mm.
that would beat me up. And these tapes, these one-liners that go through your mind are often not ours. They're inherited for maybe generations, belief systems, those one-liners that say, hey, you're not good enough to do this.
Mm.
And it's not accident that I have the accomplishments that I have. I mean, I don't just have one master's degree, I have two. I have 5 degree black belt. I have Olympics on. That's no accident.
No, don't brush over that. You were in the Olympics
Yeah, 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 yeah. A 5 time national championship team. Uh,
doing what sport? I know, but let's
Flat water kayaking.
yeah.
And I made the Olympic trials in 1980 and expected to make the 1984 Olympics. Well, that's what I was going for. But then there was a lot of politics at that time in 1980. And so I just threw it all up in the air and joined the Air Force.
And
So,
so there we have, Olympic athlete, then Air
yeah, yeah,
Force,
yeah.
monastery, and let's also talk about your what level Aikido instructor?
5th degree, over 44 years of martial arts. I
Black
have,
belt, fifth
yeah,
degree black belt. Yeah.
teacher. I taught at the university for 10 years, martial arts, self-defense, and Aikido. So very well accomplished. And that's not, but what I really want to say about that
Yes.
is that in a way, that was an overcompensation in a big way, because I found that I was trying to accomplish a sense of okayness within myself. And I realized at a certain point, I don't need another degree on my wall. I don't need another ribbon on my wall. In fact, my walls are empty now because it's like I'm reaching for that empty stillness. And
Oh,
I don't need another person to say you're okay, or I don't need to say it to myself. I am okay. I'm okay for who I am, the uniqueness, and that stillness has arrived, which it took a lot of work to get there. And I can say, you know, people want a quick fix in this time. We want the steps, it can be 7 steps to enlightenment. Enlightenment is not a process, it's not an instant, it's not like, quick oats. You it's a lifetime of integrating and awakening and then falling asleep again, then waking again, and so it's like it's uh, we're never there. We're just keep polishing and keep I can say that at this time I'm more at peace and still, and I have nothing I need or want. I don't, and so it's a very peaceful place to be. And if it was finished tomorrow, I'd be completely satisfied. But I'm here.
that's the goal.
And
That is the goal, the satisfaction, and not necessarily happiness, right? It's just this, it's an
yeah,
underlying state. That's love.
yeah,
That is true love, just being content with what is. Would you
yeah.
agree?
It's a contentment. And I liked it. It makes sense when you say it's not happiness, because people always say, oh, I want to be happy. It's a contentment.
Yeah.
It's a stillness. It's a quietness. It's a breathing in and breathing out. It's that.
And you said it took a lot of work to get here. Well, 13 years in the monastery, and you talked about 10 years of self-therapy. The monastery wasn't actually the work, was it? That was the actual still seeking part, but
Yeah, I was still seeking then, quite, I was always looking for that part of me that felt like I came into this world with muffs on my ears and something over my eyes. I felt like I didn't have all my senses. And I had that remembering of the light, and I wanted to remember that fully again. And I thought it was being in religious life. And what I realized is it wasn't anywhere except within.
mm, that's huge.
Yeah,
Do you feel that your three NDEs helped you or made your life more challenging because you had fully tasted the light?
it made it more challenging,
Hmm.
at least at the first part of my life. I had childhood depression. I had depression up till I was 23 years old. And I
Mm,
actually I started to attempt suicide at 23. And I don't know if I shared that with you before.
I don't know, but
It was after my brother's death, and uh, I had a lot of guilt, feeling that I should have been able to change something because I had intuitions, precognition about his passing. And so I thought you could have said something, you could have done something, but I realize now nothing would have changed anything.
yeah.
But at that time, depression just took me over. People have commented, how could you experience that light and have such depression? Apparently, it's a common thing with people who've gone through near-death experiences. And all I can say is I wanted to return home. I was overwhelmed. I was just full of grief, and I wanted relief from that. I have utmost compassion for people who are at the brink, and I really want to tell people listening to this who listen to my near-death experiences and other programs is that we don't have to have a near-death experience to experience this peace.
Mm.
And that's what we're here for, is to transform the suffering and the challenges in our life into peace, into stillness, transform it, by our light, our unique light. But
And that's why last Sunday We did a live event for World Meditation Day called Awakening Through Stillness. How
Mm.
much of a part has that played, the stillness, in your finding peace, which to me is awakening because it's finding it within?
I just felt it now, so it's nice. Uh, it's played a huge part. It's like if you're on a standing next to a clear lake, a still pond in a sense, and the reflections, and you throw a handful of rocks in there, you get all these ripples. That's the busy mind. But when you can move into that breath of just that stillness, the lights reflecting in the trees or reflecting on the water, that's the quietness that's found within and that I've found within. And I can move back to that by breathing in just a sec, just like that now.
Yeah.
Used to it would take a lot of work to get there.
So was that your main go-to when you were triggered by the recent family reunions?
Yeah,
The
it
breath.
was the main go-to. Go back to the stillness within the storm. Can't change anything about anybody else. Uh, and I wouldn't want to. You know, it's all okay. Everybody's on their own journey, and we don't need to change anyone else. We don't even need to change ourselves. We're okay. We don't need to fix ourselves or anyone else.
Boy,
Just,
that's a tough one. Everybody thinks we need fixing.
yeah, we don't, at least my experience. I realize that I don't need to fix myself or anyone else. I just need to breathe into what's happening now with as much love and compassion and forgiveness for myself and others as I can. Because we're all living patterns that sometimes we're not even conscious of how we're enacting them or reacting them, reenacting them, you know.
What is your breathing practice in the moment of getting trapped in the story?
It's just a breathing in and breathing out.
But I said
Like,
that to my husband when we were in a stressful situation one time.
yeah, yeah.
Breathe in and out, honey, slowly. And he goes, breathe deeply. He goes, and I said, no, a little slower, a little slower. Do you count or is it just a very slow and a long exhale?
It's a very embodied, I have to say. What it feels like to me is breathing through my skin.
Hmm.
And like every aspect of my body, I'm breathing in and breathing out. And it's
Like
not,
360 degrees, not just
yeah, 360. It's 360 degrees. And I'm just breathing in and breathing out. And I can feel it now. And you feel the fluidity. What I feel is the fluidity of breathing in and breathing out. The
I feel
fluidity.
that ocean breathing.
Yeah, it's very much ocean, very much water, like Aikido. It's the water feel, and it's
Huh.
breathing in and breathing out, and just slowing everything down, because the busy mind, has a lot of, find the resistance. And so it's not a technique for me at this point. It's just a stillness that I focus and it very much as you've talked about the hara, I take it from here, I bring it into my heart and bring it all the way down, and then it just spreads out through my whole physicality. Now, the one interesting thing is, um, I think it has to do with being a preemie. I was in the hospital for 2 months before my mother ever had a chance to touch me.
Oh, wow.
So, and
Mm.
everything was procedural. So, it's easy to go into a place of disconnect, but this is an embodied. It's not a disconnect. It's a connect, if that makes sense.
Total sense. Yeah.
Connecting from the inside out. Uh, and that's how the stillness rises up within. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a minute because eh, my recent bout with sciatica for 2 months required me to be slow and deliberate and present, and it's changed my life in a good way. Again, like you were saying, you treasure every opportunity. And moving into this house, every move, if I went to pick up a box or bend over, has been slow and deliberate. And I'd like everybody listening or watching to think about how much we rush around all the time. Like
Yeah.
we think I have to do it now and multitask all the time. And this conversation today is so much different than a lot of my podcasts where like you get me with Michael Sandler and we're just wow,
Yeah, yeah.
high energy. But you and you, Tammy, radiate this stillness, and I know everybody can feel the peace. And what I want to address is I used to think stillness and being slow was boring.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Talk about that.
That's interesting. Let me just start with the the opportunity pain brings because I was in a similar situation where I was told I was going to be a quadriplegic if I was even bumped again, and they were attending surgery because it was after a car accident, and they were intending surgery on my neck, and they said you can't do anything, you can't even do Aikido, which was pretty devastating, and so. The pain was so intense that I couldn't sleep. I'd be pacing back in the living room just trying to steady myself. And I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sit. Sitting was the worst. And when it went into my feet, that was the hardest. You know, these shocks of nerve pain. Nerve pain is like having a toothache all the time, but it was going down into my feet. And what I experienced through this, it was a great teacher in a sense. eh, Training me to relax and to soften even in that. Because what I found is a resistance. First, I could hear the doctor saying, you're going to be a quadriplegic the rest of your life. So that was, the fear. Fear came in, dropped
Yeah.
in. And then the idea that, this feels like torture. I want this to stop and it
Yeah.
won't leave. And pain demands your attention. The
Yes.
body's asking, pain is a message system. I don't know if you've ever heard of children being born without the ability to feel
Oh,
pain.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they don't live very long because we need that feedback. Pain is a feedback system to the body and mind. And it's asking for attention, it's asking for breath. So what I learned is if I could go into that pain and it's just like emotional pain. If I can walk and face it and have maybe a dialogue or just breathe into it. Sometimes that's all I could do is breathe into it and soften that resistance just by breathing just a little bit. And then as I soften the resistance, what I notice is the pain goes like this. It gets worse and then it gets better. And nothing ever stays the same. And so one of the fears that happens when you're in a lot of pain is it's never going to change. It's going to get worse. That dialogue, it's going to get worse. And so it does make it tighter. And
Yeah.
so breathing into the spaces in between and as the pain gets worse, it gets better, it gets worse, it gets better, and then things begin to soften. I went back, they intended surgery. I did a second MRI and they were going to do surgery. And the surgeon walked in and he was shaking his head. He goes, how did you do this? He said, what did you do? He said, I've never seen in 30 some years, I've never seen healing like this. How did you do this? I want to tell my patients. And I said, I'm just using the light that we all have.
Uh-huh.
And, I've been doing healing work for over 40 years. And I know in my gut that all I do is create the conditions for healing to happen. And it's very much like mediumship. You become nothing, you can become empty, and you just facilitate the healing because all healing is self-healing. And so that by doing this with myself, I'm able to create the conditions of centeredness and peace for people to allow themselves permission to do that as well. But all
The,
healing, whether it be a surgery, whether it be a medicine, truly all healing is self-healing.
the body has its own innate intelligence. It knows how to heal ourselves if we get out of
Absolutely.
the way.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it really is, it seems it's all about getting out of our own way. in so many ways, emotionally, physically, just get the character role that we think we're playing out of the way for a minute and breathe into that. And it's a remembering. I love that people, when they're reading the book, say it helps me remember my own story. And I feel like I'm walking with a friend through this. And I love that. It's an invitation to remember.
Let's come back to that boring phrase. That was a beautiful
Boring
lesson.
phrase.
But to me, to be still used to be boring. And I feel
Yeah.
it goes back to what you were saying about trying to, you feel like something's missing. So you're trying to fill it, and you filled it with degrees and overachieving and so
Yeah, yeah,
forth.
yeah.
And we almost, so many of us can relate to overachieving. But there's almost a fear when we're in stillness if you haven't yet gotten to the point where you realize that's your true essence. And that's why we label that, well, this is boring. I have to do something. Would you agree with that?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever been bored in my life. Um,
Yeah.
Stillness has always attracted me. I don't know why that is, but I felt attracted to the stillness and the quiet ever
Well,
since I can remember.
that would
And it
explain why
wasn't
you could
boring.
spend 13 years in a monastery,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Huh. And yet you weren't satisfied there. So interesting.
Well, yeah, because I was looking outside of myself, thinking that the source of that peace was found outside of myself, found in, you know, yeah, I didn't believe that it was actually as close as my breath. You know, I kept
And it
thinking
is.
I had to change something was broken and realizing there's nothing broken. You don't have to change anything. That's what I discovered. But it took a long time to just find that. I mean, some people are probably quicker. Some people have instant. It's never been instant for me. It's always been a process of integrating, of an unfolding, and a gentle realization. And I'm still unfolding. And
You're
it's
unfolding
layers.
as a beautiful medium. You mentioned mediumship earlier, and I'd like to come around to that now because that may
Okay.
surprise people that you you're a healer and you now are connecting people with their loved ones who have passed. Does that surprise you?
It definitely surprised me. I never in the world thought I'd be doing this. And it feels like everything I've done in my life has kind of like coalesced into this, what I feel is my last mission or opportunity. I don't need to do mediumship. It's just here it is. I'm not attached to it, but I'm enjoying the heck out of it. I'm enjoying, I first started it as a spiritual practice. I heard about your story in 2018, and I was like, I mean, I've always been interested in spirit, since I can remember. I mean, when I got an undergraduate in theology and philosophy because of that. And so when I heard your story, I was thinking this is real. We can do this. And so I started taking some of your courses, super inspired by your story. And it was like an invitation for me to use this as a spiritual practice. And then as I started practicing, I joined Very Soul, and I could set it up like a martial arts practice for me in a sense because I could set my calendar through Very Soul and be regular practices. And I was just doing it for my own spiritual growth. And then as we progressed, um, Very Soul, Sally at Very Soul said, "You need to do this for real because it's having such an impact." And I am just moved every day by the stories, and I just feel so blessed to have the opportunity to sit in front of people and just beautiful, beautiful souls. I mean, and people who have experienced such pain, and then when I see such things as deep, deep grief, and children committing suicide, and uh, just I don't want to tell some of the stories I've heard because I've heard some of the worst of the worst. And but what amazes me about the human being is that we are really the definition of what it means of the death and resurrection. We are the resurrection. We are the living resurrection when we allow ourselves to rise up out of that suffering. And I've seen amazing souls sit in front of me, and I've seen humbled, beyond humbled, how they're even standing, in some of the things they go through. And yet we keep getting up. And I think that's the beauty of what it is to be a human being, that we come into this dimension or whatever it is, this story, and we have the opportunity to contrast, to fall into forgetfulness, fall into suffering and pain, and then we get up again. We keep getting up. And that's what the beauty of this life is. It's it's incredible the opportunity we have to come here, forget, and then stand up in such pain and suffering. It blows me away. It brings me to tears sometimes how courageous human beings really are.
But I can hear some of our listeners right now saying, but what's the point? And it comes back to the love.
That's the point. It's the point is love. Love remembering and standing up. Love wouldn't have the depth it has without this story. It would just be without the experience. Uh, I love Neil Donald Walsh's story, The Little Soul in the Sun. Have you ever read it?
Yes. Yeah.
And I love the idea that we come here and make agreements. And how could you know what forgiveness is like unless you've ever, had the opportunity to have somebody do something to you so bad that you needed to figure out what that actually was, to feel the pain of it. Otherwise it's just a mind game. And this is not a mind game. This is an embodied game. We're all in physical, and otherwise there's no depth to love. You know, it's pain gives us an opportunity to choose love, you know.
You call your book Into Love. Why that title?
Well, originally it was called Surrendering into Love, and I shortened it because I was told by Spirit World it'd be 3 books. And oh yeah, that was hard enough to write one, but anyways, so it got shortened into love. And so it's basically the book is about surrendering into love, finding, noticing when the resistance rises and surrendering even into that. Can I even say yes to this now? Can I turn my no into a yes? Can I even forgive this? Can I forgive myself?
And yes is not saying it's all right.
No.
It's really saying this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And now what do I do? Mm. Hmm.
Love is yes is creating space around what's arising. It's knowing that uh, you're going to be okay no matter what happens. When I went down that dirt road, people can listen to that story in the other interview. But when I was taken down that dirt road, when I actually gave up my life, that's when I found it,
Mhm.
power. So it's a surrendering. And people often say, oh, there is no death. We die every day and we are born every day. Every moment we're dying and we're being born. Every cell in our body's dying and being born again. It's all a dying and being born again. And I ask myself often, what is being born right now in you? What is arising? What is wanting to be born in you right now? And it's noticing what is being born, and what is dying. What do I need to surrender? What do I need to let go of? And you don't need to do anything. It's just an awareness, what's arising now. And again, where the resistance, for me, where I find my resistance is where the opportunity is. That's where the juice is. That's the opportunity to look at another layer of opening into love. I've had people say when I cross over, I want to still be me. I don't want to be me. I don't want to be any part of this character. I want to dissolve fully into the light and have no resemblance of anything except dissolve. And so when I sit in meditation, it's often that. It's often a dissolving into love. And
Let's address that before we go on, though, because Tammy, you are not in a romantic relationship, as far as I know, and you don't have children. Is that correct?
that's correct.
So anybody listening that has children, that really raises fear in them. But I don't want to dissolve. I want to be here for my kids. I don't want to die. I need to be here. I want to know what's going on with my kids or my partner. That's a very human thing. So I'd love for you to address that.
I did have someone in my life for almost 7 years, and I write about it in the book called Through a Lover's Eyes.
Mhm.
For me, that experience was incredible because uh, for me, it allowed me to see things through another's eyes that I didn't see within myself. That's the true gift of a love. And whether it's a friendship or a love, romantic love, if we can be that for others to help them see, or not help them, we don't need to help anybody, but to reveal the gift of seeing that treasure that's inside. Sometimes we have a hard time seeing it ourselves. Let me go. You wanted to
I
talk
want you to
about
address
children.
the fact that a lot of people are not where you are. They don't want to dissolve, and it's a choice.
Yeah, it's actually a choice.
Yeah,
And not everybody wants to go to dissolve, and they don't.
you don't.
There. I remember when in the scripture Jesus said there are many houses, many rooms, many houses in the spirit world, and people are doing all kinds, souls are doing all kinds of things, and it's not everybody's moving into the same vibration. When I remember the one point when I was moving into the light, there were it was like being in a river of souls going towards the light. And I remember that there were different colors I had never seen before, but souls of different colors. And I often I wonder if that was because people are different vibrational frequencies. There are many channels in this world and the next,
Mm, mhm.
and so we don't all have to go into the same channel.
There we go. Yeah. That,
I
yeah.
don't know if that
I find
answered
that
it.
very, no, it definitely does because some people say, I don't want to dissolve. And some people just aren't at that stage. It's not a reward. It's not an end state because even after you dissolve, Tammy, you just become one with the one. And then there we become a point when the one arises again. Will it have the same awareness as Tammy Anderson? No, but you'll still know the one thing we all know. I exist. Here I am. I am the light.
I am the light.
And that's what you come to know through the stillness. And
And
that knowing that it's all the light, that's the love. That brings us back around now. That's the
right.
underlying
And then
essence.
asking who is that I that doesn't want to surrender all of it? Who do we think that I is that we talk about? It certainly is in our character role. Yeah, that I go a little bit further when we say, I want this and I want that. Who is that I that's asking? Go into that space in between that, and you might, it's an experience, it's not a word that I can, it's just a knowing.
It's separate from the story. So we're taking our stories into a new year here. As we bring this interview to a close, what advice or guidance or insights would you share with people about as we start another cycle of being human?
Dive all into the messiness,
Hmm.
and then arise again, knowing that you're okay no matter what happens. And you have many opportunities every day to choose. And if you don't choose the way you think you should have chose, then get back up and do it again. It's just there's no, part of learning how to ride a bike is you keep falling off and get back up, and then you're sailing. And so I'd also say that, it's really true what I wrote on my book, that the door has always been within and the key has always been love. And so if you're seeking outside of yourself, consider going within and just breathing in. And it's that simple. It's not complicated, you know. It really is not complicated. It's being okay with, you know, with all the information that's coming through, we think that it's, we want the pizzazz, but there's so much pizzazz in the just feeling that expansion that is just go in the stillness, go in the center of the storm.
Yeah. Yeah. So many people come to this show, the Awaken Way podcast, because you're grieving and somebody you love has passed.
Yeah,
You want to meet them. And that was the wake up call for me to get on the path to sitting in stillness daily,
yeah,
not realizing that would bring me to this place of utter peace and contentment
yeah,
that you've been speaking about, that we've been speaking about. And so I can just tell everybody that it's a byproduct of your seeking relief from the pain. But
yeah.
this stillness is a requirement to find what lies beyond the pain.
When might remember when you're in this deep grief, it's like your heart is like, "Ugh." It's like, and the foundation is ripped out from underneath you. I remember when my brother passed, and and it was surreal because it felt like, people were walking by and the world kept going, but the world just stopped. And you're sitting there going, how does everybody act like it's normal when, and it's like you're in this surreal space and you're cracked wide open. And, I remember when my mentor, Jim, he jumped off a bridge. And I mean, that was one of the most difficult. And I remember just sobbing. And then you're broken wide open. And what I found is if you breathe in between the tears, there's a stillness that's deeper than anything you've ever experienced. That cracking open, it really too is kind of like, Leonard Cohen's song, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And so if we can breathe into that stillness between the tears and into that cracking open, there's a stillness there and everything's okay.
And you know what we're cracking open is the walls that re-erect from the very first time that we're wounded as
Yeah.
children. And the walls get heavier and heavier because you reminded me of a slide I show in some of my presentations when I tell the story of my friend Brenda who passed. When she first came to one of my presentations and she felt the love
Yeah.
that we just radiate naturally from within, she went running from the venue because she didn't know what this feeling was. And she
Yeah.
said it was like a part of her cracked open. It was
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
walls, a lifetime of putting up walls, and the love that she felt out here, it resonated with what was inside all of us. And it
Absolutely.
cracked that open. So that's coming back to love. That's
Yes.
what we're trying to find here.
And I remember when my loves it was I wrote about it in the book, but at a point he was looking at me. I said, "What are you looking at?" And he looked at me deeply in my eyes, and he didn't say a word. But what I saw was, what I felt was, I was looking through his eyes, seeing what he was seeing, which was in a beautiful soul. And the love was just so pure. And I got to see through his eyes the beauty within me. And that's the gift of a lover. But what I noticed is, is that one time he had taken a picture. We were in a sailboat and he took a couple pictures of me. And I looked at that picture and that was the first time I'd seen since I was a little kid. I looked at that picture and I go, oh, there she is.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Mm.
It's that coming back to that childlike essence, that essence that we forgot, that
No
innocence.
wall. No
Yeah,
wall.
the walls. It's that awe, that wonder, and it's no wonder that, the teachers say, um, you enter the kingdom of heaven as a child, not childish, but child, that awe and wonder. And that's how I move into mediumship. I move into mediumship with this sense of awe and wonder and excitement, like, like a kid, like Christmas, like, what are you going to share with us now? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like amazing when you go into that, and the the gold nuggets you call them that come, after, and it's like I love getting emails after and saying I figured it out. you know.
Well, Tammy, you just helped me find the perfect way to wrap this up because it's, being like a child without the walls. That's my challenge to everybody this new year coming up is find the walls. My recent issue with the 2 months of pain helped me discover walls deep within that I didn't know were there. We're like you and I are old enough to remember the TV program Get Smart. Remember the beginning of that show
Yeah,
where he would go through doorway after doorway. You'd think
yeah,
he's trying to
yeah,
get down and one door after another. I see that's how our lives are. Just
yeah,
all these little walls that we've erected, and we don't know that some of them are there. So everybody be curious, be inquisitive, and if
yeah.
you're not feeling the love that we've been talking about and you want to get into love, like the title of Tammy's delicious book is to be willing to find the walls and like Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
And you're not only doing it for yourself, you're doing it for generations because a lot of these walls even aren't even, they're patterns. They're patterns within the field, and we're just bringing our light to shift the pattern a little bit if we can.
That's it. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody. You got your homework now. Find the walls, tear them down, fall back into love with yourself, your true essence, and everyone around us. Go out and
Thank you
have
very much.
not only a great week, but a great year. Thank you. See you back here next week, everybody.
Bye.